everyone, and welcome to Parent Orientation. We are here today to help you understand USAC a little bit more, and our goal today is to help you understand the tools and resources that you have in order to help your student achieve a very successful, academically strong, and unique study abroad experience. I have a couple colleagues here with me, and I wanted to start this off by introducing ourselves so you know who you'll be talking with today. My name is Cami Alfaro, and I am the Student Information Manager. And I work in the Student Information Department with all of our program advisors. We have 10 different program advisors who are all assigned to one of your students in helping them throughout the study abroad experience.
Hi everyone, I'm Leanne Howard. I've been with USAC for 8 years now, and I currently work as the Health and Safety Manager. So today I'll be talking about health and safety with you.
Hi everyone, my name is Justine Toro. I'm a program advisor here at USAC, and I work specifically with our students that go to Costa Rica, Norway, and Sweden. I also oversee parent outreach, and we have Kim Lagarza as well. She is the director of our Finance and Human Resource Department. She will be joining us later to give her experience as a parent alumni. Her daughter has studied abroad twice with USAC, so you guys will get to hear from her and her experience.
Okay, so to start us out today, let's talk a little bit about USAC. USAC was founded in 1982. We are nonprofit, and we aim to provide quality and affordable study abroad programs in non-traditional locations. We have over 50 locations and send about 4,200 students abroad per year. And we have 5 departments within our central office and work with 33 affiliate universities. So as we start our discussion, we wanted to talk about the different people involved in your student study abroad process and what those roles look like. So USAC and the student's family or parents are really the foundation of the student's success, as you can see here in the pyramid. And USAC really aims to empower its students, and we ask that you take an active role in empowering them as well. And we ask this because the benefits of study abroad stem from being able to problem solve independently. The student growth begins well before departure and gives them insight into self-sufficiency, independence, and professionalism, which they're going to need once they're on site and upon return in order to be successful. And I know as a parent, it can be really hard not to ease the stress of your student. They're so busy with school, maybe they have a second job, maybe they're in Greek life. They have a lot on their plate. But by taking over the process for them, filling out their visa application for them, doing their forms for them, it's actually doing them a disservice, and it's not allowing them many crucial growth opportunities that are so important in this whole experience. So we wanted to provide you some ways that you can help support your student while empowering them and allowing them to have a go at this experience by themselves with some support. So giving them encouragement to act independently and giving them confidence to do so. You want to allow them to try to do things, even if they make a mistake or they need help along the way. Giving them the chance to try is going to really help build those self-sufficiency and independent skills. And one of the most important things for you all to do throughout this experience is communicate with them. Discuss their experience, ask them questions, talk about their excitements, talk about challenges they're concerned about facing. Talk about your excitements and maybe some of your hesitancies so that you guys can both be on the same page. And also know that throughout those conversations, USAC is here to support you, help you understand the process better, what it's going to be like on site better, so make sure that you use us as a resource. So while we're both here to support your child, we also need to keep in mind that it's ultimately the student's responsibility to complete everything for their study abroad experience, all their forms, everything they need to do. They need to make sure to keep you and USAC updated throughout the process. be immersed and productive while abroad, stay academically focused, and make the most out of their experience. And these are really the most common threads of feedback that we get from alumni, is the invaluable growth the experience has, not only for college, but for their careers and future lives. We are very fortunate to be able to see this growth in our alumni every day, and we're just really excited to see you guys be able to have the chance to see your children grow and have this experience as well. One other topic I wanted to talk to you guys about is academic standards. We pride ourselves on offering academically strong and focused programs, and academic credibility of our courses is one of our top priorities. We have an entire department that's dedicated to academics, and we have 3 accrediting universities within USAC. So just to give you an idea of some of the things that our academic affairs department handles, among many other things, but they do all of our curriculum review and approvals, our academic policies and procedures, our syllabi and course management. They're working on course evaluations, grade reporting, transcripts, internship approvals, and disability accommodation requests. So that's just to give you an idea of all the efforts we're putting into academics. All USAC students are required to be enrolled full-time, and all students will receive a transcript at the end of their program that will transfer back towards their degree, but it's up to the student to work with their academic advisor at their home university to determine what type of major, minor, or elective credit they're going to get. And that's a really important point, and that would be a great talking point for you and your child to discuss. If they have not met with an academic advisor at this point, they absolutely need to do so, and they need to discuss how those courses are going to transfer back to their home university. So now that you have a little bit of more of an understanding about USAC and its academics, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Justine, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about some other tools that your students have and that you have to make this process a successful one.
Hi everyone, so on the screen you can see our website, usac.edu. It is a wealth of information for you and for your student. There's a ton of specific program information that you can review. We have a lot of information on payment deadlines, fees associated, scholarships, etc. So if you haven't already gone on and taken a look at our website, I really encourage you to do so. I'm going to be going through some of the key pages with you guys right now so you can become a little familiar with the information that is available to you. So this is our homepage, and from here, this programs tab in the top left corner is where all of the site-specific information is located. So you can see all of the programs that we offer, so you can find your students here. Every program is different depending on the term and the location. So Heredia, Costa Rica in the summer, the program's going to be structured differently in the fall and in the spring. So really make sure that you're aware of what pertains to the program and the term that your student is participating on. Once you find your student's program and click on the page, this is everything that is available to you. You can look at photos of what's going on site, photos of the housing options. We have great videos of all our programs where you can see the on-site staff, get a look into courses. You can see our on-site staff here on this tab, read about the university they'll be located at, housing information, etc. One of the main important pages for families is the calendar. Once you find your student's term, you can see very specific information to their semester or term abroad. We first have all of the program and payment deadlines listed here, so you can see when the USAC fee is due. And then under that, you can see their semester calendar, when they need to be at their program site by, when their field trips are, when their exams are, etc. If any of this information changes, we make sure update the website immediately so you can know that it's up to date for you to refer to. From here, you can also look at our fees and deadlines pages, which has great information on what exactly is going towards the USAC program fee. You can see the total amount listed, and then everything down here with the green check marks is what the program fee includes. It includes a lot more than just tuition, and again, every program is different, so I encourage you to check out what pertains to your student's program. If you click on the interactive budget sheet here in the green box, it brings you to a lot more specific information for the program. It breaks down all of the on-site costs that your student can be expected to have to pay for their life abroad, such as personal expenses, local transportation, their meals. In this case, for Costa Rica, it's included in the homestay fee. That's not the case for every program. So it's really good to become familiar with this budget sheet. This is a great one to bring up with your student and go over it together so you guys are both aware of all of the pre-departure and on-site costs that are going to be associated with their study abroad. You can also see course information if that's interesting to you. You can see information on the field trips that they get to go on. So again, the website is really extensive and has a lot of information for you guys. There's a Money Matters page where you can read about all things pertaining to financing study abroad. And down at the bottom, there's also a parent-specific page where you can access a further wealth of information for you guys as families supporting your student pre-departure, abroad, and upon return. Your student also has what we call a USAC Student Gateway account. And this is your student's main portal of communication with USAC. This is where they have a ton of informational documents available for them, and this is definitely their biggest USAC resource. They should be checking this on a regular basis, and anything that they could possibly have a question on should be answered on their USAC Gateway account. Your student may have already shared their login information with you, but if they haven't, I encourage you to at least log in with them once to review all of the important information here. All of these topics listed on the slide are covered in depth, specific to your student's location and term that they're going. It's also valuable for them once they come back. They can see their grades on here. So again, they should be logging into this regularly to refer back to the information on this Gateway account. Once you're logged in to the USAC Gateway account, this is what it looks like. You can break down the information available alphabetically by subject matter, as is shown here, or in a timeline view. This helps your student keep track of everything that they have already submitted to USAC and what they still need to either submit or review. Items in red are outstanding. And you can also make payments on their Gateway account on this upper tab here. So again, it's very important for your student to be referring back to throughout their process, and it's great to log in at least once with your student to review the information that's on this Gateway account. I know a lot of families have questions on where their student's going to be living once they're abroad. Like I've already mentioned, every term for every program is different, so I really encourage you to ask your student if you have questions. They have access to really specific housing information, how they need to pay their rent, when they'll get notified of their housing assignment. They have all of that information already, so if you do have any questions, please reach out to your student and they should be able to share that information with you.
Okay, so changing gears a little bit, we wanted to talk to you guys about communication. Communication is one of the most important aspects of study abroad, and it's something that USAC really values. So when we talk about communication today, we're going to talk about communication with your student and with you, and your communication with your student pre-departure and once abroad. So when I say USAC, I mean anyone from the central office. So that could be program advisors, that could be accounting staff, that could be academic staff, that could be staff abroad. It could be anyone trying to support your student. So the better the communication, the better support USAC can provide. The majority of the communication will be done through your student. You can expect to hear from USAC in these 4 instances as families. We are going to be mailing you a toolkit, offer this online orientation, email you a pre-departure email with an arrival guide, which is the same arrival guide that your students also receive, and then also an online survey to get your feedback. So in the toolkit, if you haven't looked there already, I'd really encourage you to look through it, and especially on pages 50 to 52, there's some great resources about communication, and they go over some examples about different scenarios, and they also talk about our after-hours emergency line and how to utilize that. It gives you the phone number of the emergency line in the back of the kit. And then there's also some room in the back of the kit for you to fill out any other important contact information for your student study abroad. So that's a really great talking point for you with your student before they go. You can have all that information listed on there in safe in one place for you to refer to it in case you need to. And then along the same lines with communication is developing a communication plan with your student. And this is a really big talking point for you guys to go over pre-departure. And it's one where you guys really need to achieve a good balance in communication. So having constant connection to home and using that as a crutch can really prevent your student from fully engaging and immersing themselves in the culture and the experience abroad. So it's, you know, when you're talking about your communication plan, you might decide to talk to each other once a week. Maybe it's every other week. But we really discourage you from talking to your students 4 times a day, multiple times a day, even multiple times a week. You really want to set some boundaries and let your students grow and have time to spend in the host culture. And that's really something, you know, if your student is over connecting with home, it can actually be harmful and worsen the signs of culture shock and increase their feelings of homesickness. So we encourage you to push them to explore things on site, get a language partner, join a club, take a certain activity like an extracurricular class to really help them get immersed in the culture that they're living in at that time. So keep in mind too, with internet and technology and how much it's changed in the recent years and how that's going to play a factor in your communication plan. Keep in mind that when your student posts something on Facebook, for example, it's not going to be the full story. So before panicking or jumping to conclusions or worrying too much, make sure that you have a plan to contact your child and actually have a full conversation with them. Maybe that's through Skype or Google Hangouts or something like that, and you guys can actually talk about the full story and how your child's feeling. And that will help calm your mind and ease your worries a little bit before becoming alarmed. Remember too, in these instances, that the on-site staff are always nearby and they're able to assist your child in person. And you can also remind your student that there's always the local emergency services and the on-site staff that they can contact when they're facing a true emergency, and all of that information will be given to them during their on-site orientation. One other thing to keep in mind with communication is to make sure that you're researching your communication opportunities specific to the country that your child is going to. So for example, if your child's going to China, there's going to be limited or different options for apps So keep that in mind when developing your communication plan. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Leanne, who's going to talk to you guys about health and safety.
Thanks, Cami. Well, first of all, I'm happy to be here today because health and safety is one of USAC's top priorities, which we take very seriously, and we know that you do as well. So this is a great opportunity to tell you more about the support that we have in place for you and your students. First, I'd like to dispel a myth about study abroad, that people tend to think their students are going to countries that are less safe than their home. But actually, that's not the case. According to the Global Peace Index in 2016, which was the most recent year of the report, 84% of USAC program countries are actually ranked safer than the United States. And the other countries are all ranked the same level of safety as the United States. So if anything, your student might actually be going to a place that's considered safer than their home here in the US. But even though that is true, we do have some support in place in case of emergency and also available to them 24/7 and to you. And one of those that Cami already mentioned is the emergency contact line. This is a line that is after hours through our central office. Should you need anything at a time when we're not typically open, you can call this number and you'll be able to reach a USAC staff member who can help you. We also have on-site staff at our program sites who are available 24/7 in case of emergency. They're located in the same place as your students, so they are best placed to help them if there is something wrong. And along those same lines, we have emergency response plans in place both here at the central office in Reno and at each of our program sites. And finally, we do try to prepare your students in regards to health and safety by giving them detailed pre-departure information, which we edit and update every term so that they have any new information relevant to health and safety every time. One thing that can help you and your student right now, and you can help USAC by encouraging this, is considering the following items when planning ahead pre-departure. For example, USAC asks your child to submit a health form before they go, where they disclose any ongoing mental or physical health treatment. And this is really important, not in an effort to restrict students, but in fact to help them so that we can be prepared for what they need abroad. And some things that we ask them to consider are recent injuries or ailments, mental health diagnoses, especially even if those are stable here at home, there are things that can trigger them again abroad. For example, culture shock and homesickness, which Justine will talk about later. But I think it's important for students to be prepared for changes to their mental health when they're going through that adjustment process. So being aware of that in advance can only help them have a support system when they get abroad. Same thing goes with medications. If they're taking medications, there are different rules in each country about what's legal or not. So we advise them to disclose those medications to USAC so we can provide them with resources to find out whether their medication is legal abroad. And we also give them other advice, such as getting a generic prescription for each medication, just in case the name of the medication is different abroad. And also, we provide them access to our insurance partners who can answer specific questions about medication. So the more that they communicate to us, the better off we can provide them with resources. And the same thing goes when it comes to allergies, a restricted diet, and also disability accommodations. And that goes for learning disabilities at their home universities or physical disabilities if they need mobility assistance and those kind of things. The more prepared we are, the more we can make sure they have a good experience abroad. And we also recommend that they visit their healthcare professionals prior to departure. And this is just to get an all-around update on their health before going abroad. If they need a new prescription for their glasses, for example, or contacts, take enough that they can have everything they need abroad in advance. Same thing goes with checking in with their psychologist if they go to treatment that way. Talking about the decision to study abroad in advance can help that student be prepared. So if you talk to your children about making these appointments and make sure that they do, that would be a huge help for us and for your students so that they have what they need before going. And we also encourage students to research the landscape of the place they're going, and the metaphorical one, meaning, are there different views about mental health in the country of their destination? Are there different views on LGBTQ+ than there are in the United States? And research the political and cultural climate of their host country. And China is another good example of this. Cami brought up already that there are more strict social media censorship laws in China. So, for example, Facebook is not accessible. That's something that your students should know in advance so that they can plan around it and be prepared. And then finally, as they get closer to departure, we recommend a few different steps. First, we suggest that they enroll in the STEP program. It's the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program through the U.S. Department of State. And that is a registration with the U.S. Department of State showing where the student is going, so that if any travel advisories or warnings are issued, the Department of State will get in touch with them. So it's a great way to keep up with what's happening in the country and also to be registered as a citizen out of the country in case of emergency. Finally, right before departure, it's always a good idea to prepare copies of travel documents so that they can leave some with you just in case of emergency. And we also recommend that you, the parents, have a valid passport. This is just in case, should anything happen, it would delay your ability to go meet up with your student if you didn't have a valid passport. So in case of emergency, it's good to have one on hand should you need to leave the country right away. That being said, it's also a great opportunity to go visit your student, and many of you might be planning that just because they'll have learned a new location, and there's nothing more enjoyable than getting to show off their new home for their family from their home. Okay, so having talked about pre-departure, there's some important health and safety things to know about once your student is abroad. Primarily, communication is the key. As we've already discussed, USAC can't support your student until we really know what's going on. So from the day they apply to the day they get abroad and beyond, we encourage them to talk to us and disclose when they need help. And you can do the same, because often a student might contact you first. You're their parent, you're their family, they know you well. They're going to tell you their issues. And the best thing you can do to help them is remind them to talk to USAC, because then we have staff on site who are perfectly in place to help with health and safety concerns, roommate issues, anything that should come up abroad. But we can't do anything until we know. So you can be our partners in that. Finally, I want to talk about insurance for a bit. Your students do have health insurance covered under their USAC program fees. In most situations, there are some countries that have a different type of insurance, namely Israel and Australia. And if you have specific questions about that, I'd recommend that you contact USAC. But those students are also covered. It's just a slightly different plan than the one I'm going to discuss now, which is our most common one for all other students through Cultural Insurance Services International, or CISI. We've worked with them for a long time, and they offer a great service that covers up to $500,000 in medical benefits while the students are abroad. And there's no deductible for services, so students will be fully reimbursed for any medical trips that come up while they're there. The full details of the benefits policy are located on the student's Gateway account, and I would encourage you to sit down with them and go through that if you want to know more details about what's covered. But I know in my own experience, back when I was a student and I studied abroad with USAC, I actually had better health insurance when I was abroad than I did when I was at home. So I felt very comfortable, and I can say from my experience now working with the insurance, your students will have coverage for everything that they need. And an additional benefit with the insurance is through Assist America. It's a 24/7 team of medical professionals who are available for consultation, whether it's to set up appointments for specialists or regular doctors in any country around the world, or to arrange for direct billing between the specialist office and the insurance so that your child doesn't have to pay up front, or to answer questions about medications, like I mentioned earlier, to say whether or not a medication is legal in the host country. They are a great resource. It's totally covered under the insurance benefits, and I would encourage your student to know that, because then they have a resource. If they did want to set up an appointment, they can contact them directly and they'll take it from there. And another aspect of insurance that I wanted to mention is personal property insurance. This is not actually covered under USAC's medical insurance plan, so students will not have this automatically purchased for them. However, it may be in your homeowner's insurance policy if that applies to you, so I would recommend checking that. If you do have it covered, that's great. If not, you can purchase additional personal property coverage through CISI, which covers the medical benefits. And this is something that we recommend that your students have, primarily because just like they can lose things on campus here, they could lose their phone or their laptop while abroad. And if those things aren't covered, it's a lot more difficult to purchase a replacement in a foreign country. So just something to keep in mind. Whenever there's travel, there can be mishaps. So we encourage students to look into this. And now I'm going to pass it back to Justine to talk more about culture shock.
Thank you, Leanne. So as I talk to you guys about culture shock, I just want everyone to keep in mind that what I'm going to be going over are basic and general examples. Of course, at USAC, we recognize that everyone is unique, and I'll just be making broad statements. And there is a difference between personal traits, cultural ones, and not all Americans are the same, just as not all cultures abroad are the same. However, I will be going over some generalizations. So I want you guys right now to think in your head of some of the positive and some of the negative stereotypes that people abroad may have of Americans. It's pretty easy to think of some, I would say. So off the top of my head, some positive stereotypes that people have of Americans are that we are optimistic and outgoing, we're friendly and hardworking, confident, even wealthy, and very generous as well. Some of the more negative stereotypes of Americans, that we are loud, maybe rude, immature, aggressive, wasteful, politically naive, and ignorant of other cultures. Some of these may or may not be true according to what you believe, but with these stereotypes is the type of culture and mindset that your student is going to be walking into when they are living in a different country. People think that Americans are very direct. For example, the direct American style can be taken as impolite or too informal. People may find it strange that Americans smile all the time for no apparent reason, or strike up a conversation with the person checking you out in the grocery store. This is all something that's seen as a typical American. This is why it's a good idea to research politics and cultures within the U.S. That way you can find out more what other people might think of us. It's really interesting. Your student is going to go abroad and they're going to discover so many other stereotypes and generalizations and views of what people consider the typical American that they had no idea was different abroad. So this is why it's very good to research our own American and U.S. politics and culture before you go abroad. Another one that's very different abroad is drinking abroad. In many other cultures, it is social to drink, and the drinking age is much lower than our 21 cap here in the US. So we encourage you to have a conversation with your student to not binge drink and to realize that they're going to a culture that drinks very socially, and the students at their host university have probably grown up having wine with dinner, and their views on alcohol are very different than ours here in the US. When our USAC students go abroad, they are representing USAC, they are representing America, and they are representing their home state and their home university. So it's really important for your student to keep that all in mind in how they present themselves abroad. More on our US cultural values, keeping with directness. For example, in South Korea, it is in their culture to maintain peace at all times. This can even mean telling a little white lie to avoid offending someone or causing a fuss. The same goes in Costa Rica. They really want to be helpful. So if you ask someone for directions in Costa Rica, they may tell you something that's not true just to appear helpful. So these are all differences that your student is going to have to get used to while they are living abroad. Americans are also seen as very informal. This can be a big jump for students going to Thailand or Japan because they are much more formal cultures, specifically in the classroom with their professors. In Thailand, Thai students will stand when their professor enters the room, or in Japan, you may bow to your professor when they enter the room. If your student doesn't do these things, it may be considered rude in the host culture. Of course, they'll get abroad and they'll make some mistakes. It's impossible to know everything about a new culture, but that's why we really encourage both yourself and specifically your student to research the culture of where they are going to. Culture shock. This is something that we at USAC can guarantee that every single student studying abroad will go through. It will manifest differently and at different times, but everybody absolutely goes through it. It's broken down into stages that you see here. The first stage is the honeymoon phase. In this phase, everything is new, exciting, and different. Everything is fabulous. You're living abroad in Ireland. This is your first time out of the country. You love the new cobblestone streets, and you're so excited to be there. After you start to phase out of the honeymoon phase, this is when the homesickness and culture shock may start to hit in. The excitement of the new cobblestone streets has worn off, and now the student may be frustrated that it's difficult to walk on, or they can't wear their favorite pair of high heels anymore on the cobblestone. So in this phase, small things that maybe wouldn't bother them in their home country at home are frustrating when they are abroad. And this is when you will likely hear from your student when they are feeling sad or frustrated because of the small things that they are having to adjust to and that feel out of their comfort zone while they're getting used to life in this new culture. They will soon start to adjust, which is great. They will start incorporating aspects of the new culture they're living in into their daily life. They'll get used to riding public transportation more. They'll get used to hearing things in Spanish or in Chinese. They will be starting to learn the language more. They'll start to feel like they're fitting in, which is great. It is possible that your student may come down to this phase, which involves confronting deeper issues. It's also possible that this phase may take your child, as well as you, most by surprise. You and your student may have anticipated the initial adjustments at first, the initial homesickness. You would have expected that you would feel a little unhappy and homesick at some point, but that things would then get better. And then after they do get better and they do make adjustments, they think they've made it, but then something else happens. During this phase, students begin to confront some deeper and more personal differences between their values, expectations, and lifestyle. They may need to turn inward more to understand their unhappiness or why they're feeling discomfort. Perhaps classes aren't going the way that they'd hoped. Perhaps their early friendships that they made are less fulfilling than they had hoped. Perhaps they're finding maybe that their major or their area of study doesn't really feel right. Whatever the problems are now, they definitely seem to be more within, more internal, and have less to do with the superficial characteristics of the culture that they are studying in. This just means that your student has some internal work to do, and this is completely normal. And this is where a lot of the growth happens. This does not mean that they have failed to adapt to their new culture. They just, and you, also need to have the patience for the adjustment process to continue. And this is where we get to the adaptation phase. With patience, your student will find that they have truly accepted their new life at their university abroad and that they really feel integrated into their new culture. They have a realistic understanding of what's involved in their new life and the culture, and they have probably made some personal changes to how they live their life at this point to adapt more to the culture that they're living in now. This is where your student can really appreciate both their home culture and their new culture that they have abroad. They are now, in effect, bicultural, and this is the whole point of studying abroad and where all of the growth happens for your student. And this is where the maturity and confidence in their abilities will really become apparent to you guys as parents when you are talking with them and when they come home. When they do come home, they will also go through reverse culture shock. They will also have a honeymoon phase when they come back. They're excited to be reunited with family and friends. They're excited to see everything that they've missed while they're abroad. And then the reverse culture shock will set in when they're missing Spain, they're missing their old life, they're missing all the friends that they had abroad. Just keep in mind that this is normal, and they will again go through an adaptation phase where they will settle back into their life at home, and you'll probably see some changes in them where they will have some differences that they've come back, definitely in terms of their maturity and their confidence, their problem-solving skills like we mentioned, but they may also have some different quirks in the way that they live their life that they have picked up from their host culture. So we encourage you guys to support your child through all of these cycles of adjustments, and if you do have any questions about what your student is going through, again, remember that the USAC staff is here to help through that. The biggest way that you can help your student adjust, both on-site and when they get back, is to participate and be active. If your student is sitting in the room on social media, like Cami mentioned, talking too much, having too much of a tie with home, it can hinder their growth abroad. So the more that they participate in their host culture, the more that they will be able to adjust. And this also includes hanging out with locals, learning the language, making a language partner, and these are all things that our on-site staff can help with. When your student comes home and goes through their reverse culture shock, just know that studying abroad has truly and will truly change your student's life and will have some very concrete benefits for your student. And like we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, it's really one of the most rewarding things about studying abroad, both for us at USAC and for you guys as families, is to experience all of these new areas of growth that your student will have. I'd like to turn the time over to Kim LaGarza. Like we introduced before, she is the Director of our Finance and Human Resources Department, and she's here to talk to you about her experience with her daughter studying abroad with USAC.
Do I right from here? Okay. I'm actually the parent of a double alumni. She attended Cuba summer in the summer of 2017 and just returned from San Sebastian spring 2018. I have some hints that I have learned as a parent. The first thing I'd like to say is try not to worry. Your child's safety is our top priority. I worried less about Jacqueline in Cuba than when she attended a week-long country concert out in the desert in our home state of Nevada. Safety is our top priority. Our resident directors are on call 24/7. I would emphasize to your child that they are a visitor in a foreign country and must follow the country's laws, and the student should be mindful of the country's culture. I would also advise to tell your child, don't travel alone on weekends and or at night. Always have a buddy. Packing. This was the biggest struggle for Jacqueline and I. Encourage your child to start making lists a month or at least a couple weeks prior to the departure. Start packing at least a week in advance, or at least encourage them to begin. Don't pack for them. Make them do the packing. You can at least confirm if they've packed the essentials, their medications, their contacts, their seeing eyeglasses, their bank card, their passport. Don't panic if they start packing the night before. My daughter did this when she went to Cuba. I was so mad at her. We got in a big fight about it. And my husband finally pulled me aside and said, if she forgets something, as long as she's got the essentials, she'll be fine. She can buy it there if she has to. Communication. Decide ahead of time how and how often you and your child will communicate. Have a family communication plan. Don't panic if you don't hear from them for a couple of days or evenings. It means they're having fun. Get Skype if you don't have it. We use that a lot. We couldn't use it in Cuba, but with Spain, she probably Skyped with us at least 3 times a week, caught us up on everything, and it really helped her homesickness and ours. Before you leave, get all the contact numbers from your child. Know who to contact in case of an emergency. Get their phone numbers and all their contact numbers. Homesickness. They will get homesick. Jacqueline got homesick the first time when she went to Cuba, and she did not think she was going to be homesick when she went to San Sebastian. She got homesick. When they call, just encourage them. Tell them to get out there, immerse themselves, have fun, get to know the country and the city they're living in. Encourage them to hang in there. They will probably call and text a lot the first month or so. After they start getting to know the country, they've made new friends, you're going to hear from them a lot less. That's a good thing. And the very last, which is really important, is finances. I recommend that all parents have access to their children's account while they're abroad. If there's a lost debit card, you need to transfer money very quickly because of some crisis. If there is one, it makes life a lot simpler for you and them. Let's see, I'm trying to think. I put Jacqueline on one of our credit cards. She had that credit card for emergency. She ended up having to buy a ticket in Madrid when she was coming back one time. It was very simple. It was very easy. She didn't panic. We didn't panic. We remind all parents, or we emphasize, get your passport or get your passport updated. If there is an emergency, God forbid, or if you want to go see them at the very last minute, you've got the passport, you're ready to go. But if you don't, it could be a 5 to 6 week process, so we really emphasize that. And that's about it. And just remember that studying abroad is a gift that you're providing them. Encourage them, enjoy, and have fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. That was great advice. And now to wrap it up, we want to thank you all once again for your time and support, both with USAC and for your student. We want to remind you to explore our website, subscribe to our blog, and if you have further questions after watching this orientation, we encourage you to reach out to your student, communicate with them. They're your biggest resource of information. And thank you all for listening, and we're so excited for you all to watch your student and your child grow on this amazing journey they have ahead of them. And if you have a few minutes at the end of this presentation, if you'd like to fill out our online survey that will pop up, that will really help us provide orientations for future families. Thank you so much.